Welcome to DRGLT Economics. I'm Dr. Julian Tong. In today's episode, I want to talk about why Bitcoin is a threat to privacy and how I believe, at least based on my understanding, the blockchain technology may be integrated into the monetary system. So first things first, and I think quite briefly because the argument is very clear and very strong, and so I want to just basically briefly cover why Bitcoin is such a big such a big threat to privacy. A lot of people, I see this all the time now. It was not evident, it was not this common even last year, but now I see all the time people on Twitter and other social media platforms, those people with thumbnails, logos with laser eyes, and those people always say Bitcoin solves this, Bitcoin solves that. That I, of course, think is, I hope that those accounts are, those burner accounts, what is it called, bots. I hope they are bots. I hope they are just manipulations by people who have speculated on Bitcoin and just basically want to change public opinion. I hope that is the case because people, real people who actually believe this, I think is really sad. That would be very sad. Bitcoin, of course, I think Bitcoin is something that you can speculate on. I wouldn't encourage it. And as I said, as I talked about in, I think, a couple of previous videos already, I see Bitcoin as a perfect bubble in the sense that it has no intrinsic value. And because it has no intrinsic value, it does not have a revaluation process. So it is a bubble from which it is difficult for people within the bubble to realize that it is a bubble. It's not very different from the tulips, for example. Tulips, you buy tulip bulbs. Well, that's a future contract, but before the spring comes, you have to take delivery, and then it became clear, right? It becomes clear that the tulip flower is not going to sell $1 million, and so the tulip bulb is not worth more than the flower, and so as a result, the bubble has to burst because there's a revaluation process. Bitcoin, because its exact worth, intrinsic value is zero. It does not have a revaluation process. It can be priced at anything, and it's all good. As a result, of course, you can speculate on it, but to use it is a different matter. Of course, a lot of critics of Bitcoin tend to point to the speed of transaction being a bit slow, not instant, and the fact that the fees are very, very high. It can be $10 or more for a single transaction, and becomes very, impractical in a lot of scenarios. That's all good. I don't disagree with those points, but I think they are missing the most important point, which is that Bitcoin is on a public blockchain. A lot of people say this is a benefit. Well, blockchain, distributed ledger technology, it's good for a lot of things, but not for holding your money. You know, a lot of people don't want their governments to see their accounts. They don't want their government to see what they have bought, and so on. Well, with blockchain, if you are using Bitcoin, what happens is that no longer is it necessary for the government to even worry about how to get your private information. Everyone can get your private information. Your bank can, of course, all the media companies, all the marketing agencies, everyone, all the accountants, all the lawyers, everyone knows how much you have, what you have purchased, right? Just think about, I hope you are not using Bitcoin doing anything, making any illicit financial transactions. I hope you are not purchasing anything that is illegal. There are some stupid people who think, maybe I use Bitcoin to buy some drugs. Well, if you use Bitcoin to buy drugs, you are surely going to prison. The federal penitentiary waiting for you, right? If you use Bitcoin to bribe a government official, then of course you go to prison. That's what awaits you, because everything on the blockchain is fully traceable. And of course, a lot of people would then say that Bitcoin is because Bitcoin only has a PIN, and this thing is fully anonymous. It is anonymous only to the extent that you don't make any purchases from anyone. If you start making purchases or making transactions, then it can be traced. Now, of course, there are people who say, it's free to make any number of accounts. So I hold my Bitcoin in 10 different accounts, and then when I want to make some purchases, I send some of my Bitcoin into another burner account or burner wallet, and then I make the purchase. But doesn't matter how many times you send this around, it is all traceable, and it is not very difficult for anyone who wants to trace the funds back to you. So this is this is a surveillance state's biggest wet dream, and it is very dangerous for privacy. Right, so this basically is all that I want to say about Bitcoin. It is just compared with even any cash, doesn't matter, all the fiat currencies, or compared with any precious metals or other things, jewelries, things that or art pieces, things that you can barter with. This is the most traceable, and it is not just, let's say you don't have anything to hide. You don't mind your law enforcement agencies to come after you, the tax collectors to come after you, because you are doing everything by the book. That's all fine. But the criminals will also have access to the knowledge of your wealth. And before you think that because you have a private PIN that you can keep your wealth, think again when there's a gun pointed at your head. And of course, nobody needs to crack the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain. Nobody needs to hack it to extract the money from you. All they need to do is a gun to your head and think about whether you can put yourself on the blockchain. So that's why this is so dangerous. It is exceptionally dangerous, and of course, it's something that you can speculate on. I certainly wouldn't advise anyone to use it. In the second part of this episode, I want to talk about how I see perhaps blockchain technology could be integrated into the monetary system. I think I have written an article maybe 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, about what I think blockchain could be implemented to replace the dollar, basically. Now, I wouldn't say that this necessarily will happen. In fact, in the next episode, I want to talk about why I think the gold bugs are wrong, and why I think perhaps gold will not be monetized. And at the same time, I think maybe after that episode, I want to talk about why I think even blockchain will not be monetized. And in reality, perhaps it's going to be a basket of fiat currencies that is going to replace the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, basically mostly used for trade. And whether this is based on a blockchain infrastructure or not is a, distinction without a difference. Because blockchain is a technology. It's a technology just like whether you say a shop is online or not. A shop is a shop. Of course, there are some differences, material differences between whether it's a physical shop or a virtual shop. But at the same time, by the same time, the primary incentives and the primary areas of operations within these businesses are largely identical. There are only some surface level differences. So that is that, right? So that's the background. But if any by chance blockchain becomes used rather than a collection of fiat currencies, but something else to replace the US dollar, I think it would be close to what is called I think it's called SDR, which is Special Drawing Rights from IMF, which is International Monetary Fund. And it is a unit of account for IMF. Basically, it's a collection of, if I remember correctly, US dollar, euro, Japanese yen, the British pound, and the Chinese yuan. These 5 currencies. And there is I think actually it's a floating exchange rate between the SDR and those national fiat currencies. And so if there is anything that can be built on the blockchain and be used for international trade, it would be something like the SDR. And I think some countries may welcome it. Some other countries, just really purely based on the political environment domestically, perhaps would prefer to reject such a proposal. And the reason again is that when you have a international, even on the national level, some governments may not be fully prepared to have all their foreign exchanges be activities be listed on a public ledger that every single person can review. Just think, if this is no conspiracy theory. I'm just saying that as a hypothesis, a hypothetical scenario. Suppose the CIA wants to sponsor a coup in a Latin American country, right? Let's just call it Bolivia, for example. CIA is going to send some funds to Bolivia, and what is going to happen? Is it going to happen on the blockchain, so everyone can point to the blockchain and say, "Hey, CIA, you sent money to Bolivia for a coup. That's very naughty, right?" So obviously there are some, even on the national level, national governments may resist the idea of a public ledger, and things would also, of course, extend to individuals. But of course, it is not always the case that individual citizens have the say in such matters. All right, so I think this is all I have to say for today's episode. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a great day.